पत्रकार महासंघ बागलुङका अध्यक्ष श्री राम थापा अविरलज्यू आउनुभएको छ। राम थापा अविरल लगायत सम्पूर्ण पत्रकार बन्धुहरूलाई आसन ग्रहणका निम्ति हार्दिक अनुरोध गर्छु र उपस्थित सम्पूर्ण विद्वान व्यक्तित्वहरू, हामी क्लोजिङ सेरेमनीलाई त्यति धेरै लामो बनाउन गइराखेका छैनौँ कि हामीले जे गर्नुपर्ने थियो 2 दिनमा गरिसक्यौँ। यसर्थ हाम्रो सल्लाह अनुसार आज चाहिँ हामी यो क्लोजिङ सेरेमनीको अरू कामका अतिरिक्त हाम्रा आजका विशिष्ट अतिथि गण्डकी प्रदेशका कुलपति, विद्वान व्यक्तित्व प्राध्यापक डाक्टर इन्द्र प्रसाद तिवारी सर यहाँ उपस्थित हुनुभएको छ र सरले हाम्रो नेशनल सेमिनारको टाइटल द रोल अफ रिसर्च एन्ड इनोभेसन इन हायर एजुकेसनल इन्स्टिट्युसन अन्तर्गत सरले चाहिँ आफ्नो टाइटलमा कीनोट स्पीच दिनुहुनेछ र म विशिष्ट अतिथि आजका कीनोट स्पिकर श्रद्धेय इन्द्र प्रसाद तिवारी सरलाई आफ्नो प्रस्तुतिका लागि म हार्दिक निवेदन गर्छु।
धन्यवाद कार्यक्रम सञ्चालकज्यू आजको यस धौलागिरी बहुमुखी क्याम्पसको 2 दिने सेमिनार क्लोजिङ सेसन समेतमा मलाई यहाँ किनोट स्पिचको लागि आमन्त्रण गर्नुभएकोमा धन्यवाद। आयोजकहरूलाई धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु। आजको मेरो टपिक रिसर्च इन हायर एजुकेसन prepared in front of you. Honorable Chair of this session, esteemed guests, distinguished participants from across the nation, fellow academician, researcher, reporters, journalists, media persons, college staff and students. It is an honor for me to stand before you today at this national seminar dedicated to exploring a pillar of higher education, the role of research and innovation in higher education. When we look at the landscape of modern academia, we are confronted with a fundamental question: what is the true purpose of our university? Is it merely to pass down existing paradigms, or is it to explain the horizon of human understanding and to solve the burning problems of our society, thereby create human prosperity? The answer lies in our ability to construct a dynamic bridge between the classroom and the contextual context required for those classrooms, content that must be deliberately derived from the geography and the community. Today, I want to map out this journey through my keynote address entitled Research in Higher Education, a roadmap from theoretical knowledge to practical transformation. First, clarifying research. Clarifying research from intuition to scientific rigor. Before mapping out a roadmap, we must ground ourselves in what research actually means. In common parlance, word research is used fluidly. We hear a housewife say she is searching new pancake variations. A police spokesman person note that the department is searching a complex case, or a business executive discuss research into expanding market share. Even our students often look at research as a time-bound 6-month or so hurdle to clear before graduation. But in higher education institution, we must look deeper. Broadly, research is a systematic, organized, and a database critical inquiry designed to arrive at reliable knowledge for effective decision making. As Carl Schurter beautifully noted in 1964, it is a collection of specified information according to prescribed procedures. In the words of Gerlinger, I think many of us we referred this book when we were in the university education. Scientific research differentiates itself because it is a systematic, controlled, empirical, and a critical investigation of hypothetical propositions. The evolution of our entire civilization, our laws, our technologies, our arts, and our governance system is the accumulated production of knowledge through specialized learning process, systematically recorded by a script and a codification rather than oral hearsay. Our role in higher education is to preserve, build upon, and challenge this accumulated body of knowledge. The theoretical foundation, how knowledge is built. I think many of us are familiar with some of the few slides and what I am talking here. That to move from theory to transformation, we must first understand how theory itself is constructed. In this regard, the path to scientific explanation moves through a continuous cycle of problem identification, hypothesis, formulation, observation, and the theory and the law relation. The theory building relies on two foundational engines of reasoning. I think most of us, we time and again encounter these two engines of reasoning. Deduction, the process of testing. Existing theory, where we start with an established framework, formulate a hypothesis or a set of hypotheses, and look at empirical observation to confirm or reject our premise. For induction, process of theory building, where we observe specific real world patterns, find regularities, and also irregularities as well, and formulate new conceptual framework. Within our universities, we must train researchers, master the essential components of theory, from abstract concepts and constructs to measurable variables, hypothesis, the idealized representation of the real world, which we call methods. Without a strong theoretical base, any empirical study risks becoming a collection of disconnected facts, lacking direction or cumulative value. The fundamental nature and the purpose of research, specifically its empirical, theoretical, and cumulative essence, forms the perfect bridge between pure theory and a practical transformation. Bridge to transformation, basic versus applied versus evaluation research. Distinguished colleagues, we now arrive at the very core of our seminar scheme, the bridge that connects the architect of research to the realities of practical transformation. In higher education, we often treat research as a singular monolithic concept, but to truly drive innovation, we must recognize that research exists in a dynamic continuum, traditionally categorized into three distinct types: basic, applied, and evaluation research. They may differ according to different scholars and our perspective in general, in particular, rather than in general. Understanding the unique characteristics, goals, and the settings of each is essential if we are to successfully transition from theoretical knowledge to real-world impact. The core theme of my speech rests on transforming this theoretical knowledge into practical utility. To achieve this, we must understand the continuum of these research types. Basic scientific research, the foundation of knowledge. First, we have basic scientific research. The primary nature of the problem here is structural. It seeks new knowledge about physical, biological, or social phenomena. Its overarching goal is to establish general principles, formulate laws, and build theories that explain how the world operates. When a researcher engages in basic research, they select a theory, deduces a testable hypothesis, and uses highly controlled, rigid empirical method to validate or reject that hypothesis. In the university context, basic research is our intellectual foundation. It creates the raw material of human understanding. However, basic research is typically confined to purely theoretical setting. Its immediate setting does not demand immediate practical application. Rather, it aims to enrich the global body of knowledge. Second one is applied research, the catalyst for solutions of our basic problems. Knowledge cannot afford to remain confined to the library of the laboratory. This is where applied research becomes our catalyst. The nature of the problem changes from wanting to explain phenomena to wanting to alleviate oppressing physical, economic, social, environmental, or institutional challenges. The primary goal of applied research is to explore how the principle discovered in basic research can be used in a real-world setting. It is explicitly designed to provide policymakers, planners, professionals, and industry leaders with well-grounded empirical guide for remedial action. While it uses techniques very similar to basic research, such as population or sampling, data collection, and the statistical application, it operates in an immediate setting of pressing physical, economic, social, environmental, or institutional, what in general term I call it essay for the broadest spectrum of such problems, where the practical implications of the findings are obvious and urgently required. Applied research answers the critical questions. How do we use what we know to solve the problem we face today or may face in the foreseeable future or even in the distant future? Evaluation research, in many references, we may not clearly access this literature, but I think this is quite important what I think. Finally, as we implement these solutions, we require a mechanism to measure success, which brings us to evaluation research. This type of research assesses the actual outcome and the impacts of treatments, policy, or prevailing practices applied to basic problems. This goal is not to invent a new theory in general, but we can go through this as well, but to provide a highly accurate, objective, and critical accounting of an ongoing program. It fits the specific theory or model to the problem under assessment, checking whether a project or a program achieved its target objectives or fails short. Its immediate security is always tied to achieve interventions, providing the necessary data for crisis management, program adjustment, and future policy formulations. The core nature of research. As academicians, we must recognize that genuine research is defined by four unmistakable characters. First is empirical. It is deeply rooted in direct systematic recorded observation and hard data rather than mere speculation or hearsay. Second, it is theoretical. It is not just a random collection of facts. It operates with the deliberate aim of building, testing, or defining conceptual frameworks and laws. Third, it is cumulative. Every study we execute stands on the shoulders of the literature before it, built up a progressive historic accumulation of human civilization and insights. The fourth, it is non-ethical. By non-ethical, we mean that scientific research does not judge whether or natural or social phenomena is good or bad in a moral sense. Its objective is simply to explain what is with absolute objectivity. So, scientifically, our proposed shift depending on the maturity of our subject. We begin with exploration to map our unfamiliar territory. We move to description and explanation to categorize, diagnose, and reveal underlying causes. And we ultimately strive for prediction, generalization, and cognition, which is the powerful act of expanding human awareness and social consciousness. The broad framework of research, discovery, justification, and utilization. To truly transform higher education into an engine of society, we must look at the comprehensive flowchart of empirical social science research. As laid out in my slide, this process operates within three continuous segments: the context of discovery, the context of justification, and the context of utilization. The context of discovery, sensing the need for action. The roadmap from theory to practice begins in the context of discovery. Sometimes we say that with a background in generalized the research. The research does not start in a vacuum. It starts in a specific segment of reality. It begins when we observe existing conditions, feel actual problems, and realize a desperate need for action. This is where common sense, goodwill, and human relations start, a collective responsibility to understand our environment. When we establish this baseline, we uncover a clear necessity for explanation and a want for direction. This segment transmits our human instincts into plan, conceptualization, and project preparation. Second one is the context of justification, the engine of trigger. Once a problem is identified, we move to the context of justification to do the study. So this is the engine room of academia, formal research procedure. Here, the researcher navigates multiple dimensions, categorizes, approaches, and the levels of analysis. We apply precise methods, techniques, and tools to ensure data collection is objective and flawless. Third one is the context of utilization. The ultimate destination of our roadmap is the context of utilization. If university research ends with publication and instruction, we have failed our social obligation. Thus, true transformation means translating our justified findings into active implementation. This is where we seriously lack in action over many decades in our academia. Our data and models must actively fuel policy making, provide alternative solution, assist in crisis management, safe planning and program preparation, and provide an accurate accounting of achievements and impact evaluation. This is where academic insights directly improves human survival, livelihood, prosperity, and liberty. The research architect, the empirical process. Every critical study must navigate a rigorous sequence of tasks, preliminaries, where moving from general research subject to a sharply focused problem definition, complete with a clear rationale, scope, and a specific objectives, what we are regularly, which we are regularly use and are very accustomed. Literature review, reviewing existing literature to operationalize our theories, define key terms, generate null and alternative hypotheses, and establish a clear coordination schema of variables. Where sometimes now, particularly when we are talking about null and alternative hypothesis, our research at this time, what we call the pure research, I have not counted, but when I read our research, particularly student research and then many faculty research, this segment of null and hypothesis testing part is immensely absent. I believe you also have gone through. If we agree what I have taught before, then it is an essential part. What now we do that we also say research question, but the question answer and then developing a hypothesis, testing, particularly null hypothesis, and testing it and rejects it without any doubt or alternative hypothesis. What we try to say is not undoubtedly proven. That is what I consider it. Methodology and design. Choosing an explicit research design under which we adopt an exploratory, descriptive, cross-sectional, longitudinal, or experimental design, or some hybrid designs as well. Our choice shapes our access to data, our study population or sample size, and our control over variables. This methodological part also we have to seriously consider and make it flawless. And here, I think large majority of us, we have undergone some research work and we have read uh, many research outputs where methodology is loosely taken. And sometimes I used to talk about the research in comfort zone. I think that is not acceptable. I say that, okay, there is no substantial backup how many samples we have to collect. For quantitative data, we may say that, okay, 30 minimum, because it is statistical minimum requirement. But whether this 30 fulfills represents the population or different strata of the population that we research. Or similarly, like that, under subjective research also we have quite well established minimum, let us say, minimum data to be collected. In that case, we go for comfort. And another comfort zone is, since I'm from Dhaulagiri or Baglum, and my area of study should be very close. Of course, it should be, because we are talking about local problems, trying to solve it. But sometimes we are a little bit more, what to say, overemphasizing our personal interest on research rather than the research need that we need to address. I think this is my, today I'm talking about my own opinion and then about, let us say, 46, 47 years work, particularly while using research methodology or teaching research methodology. Yes. But how do we practically operationalize the grand research idea so that it get real world result? To achieve this, a foundational coordination schema by myself and then what serves as an analytical funnel that translates abstract academic thoughts into concrete data. Research objectives and hypotheses we have limited. We always begin with our overarching objective, which immediately splits into testable hypotheses. Okay, this rests to you whether you want to use or you want to go the easy way or sufficiently justify what we are doing these days. This serves as a truly starting point of the operational research process. Parameters. From these hypotheses, we extract our broad parameters, the macro items analysis that establish the boundaries of our inquiry. Next one is the complex to simple variables, because real world problems are messy. These broad parameters must be broken down systematically. We dissect them from a complex unit of analysis, complex variables, down into isolated, highly manageable simple unit of analysis, what we call simple variables. Values and the categories of information. Once we have simple variables, we assign them distinct values, which give us our definite unit of measurement. These values organize our inquiries into clear categories of information. Here, I want to just give one example of values. When we incorporate age in our research, there may be age group, different, and then age category as our statistics results come, or some other Okay, categorization as well. So, a very critical value system is required. I can give you some examples. We are doing some economic analysis, and we say that okay, profile of the respondents, where we already decide the age group 18 to 24, 24 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 and above. Asymmetrical grouping are shown. But since we are doing a lot of statistical analysis, we forget that there is an age group, so we can enter the actual age of the respondents of or in our data system. This is very critical observation I have observed over years in our research. And then we have primary and the secondary data. Sometimes this is also a interchangeably used or mixed use. That is one area. Finally, at the very bottom of this analytical funnel, these categories detect explicitly what data must be gathered, pointing the researcher precisely toward required primary data or secondary data. So without this systematic coordination schema, there is always, we can do it, we have done. 98%, 99% researchers have done this, but what I think and I found from 1986 day that it is my observation and then okay, while evaluating the student thesis and faculty research. Without this systematic coordination schema, there is always a high chance for data gap and redundancy. Our data collection becomes blind and our justification lacks rigor. That is what I understand. It is precisely through this methodological precision that we determine whether we are conducting basic research to define and underlying theories or applied research to guide an immediate policy decision or evaluation research to assess community programs' concrete outcome. The institutional roadmap for practical transformation. Distinguished colleagues, through practical transformation in higher education occurs when our institutions do not stop at basic research. A progressive university must foster an environment where basic research field applied innovation and applied programs are continuously refined through rigorous evaluation research. In doing so, we must move beyond the culture of producing theses that merely pile up on library research. We must actively align our postgraduate and faculty research with the development need of our municipalities, our provinces, and our nation. By consciously traversing this roadmap from the discovery of basic principles to the applications of practical solutions and the evaluation of their impacts, higher education institutions can truly fulfill their role as agent of transformation and development. This is what I understand. True transformation happens when higher education institutions do not stop at basic research. We must use our basic knowledge to fuel applied research that offers alternative solutions to policymakers and evaluation research that reviews program implementation, crisis management, and development plans. To show this programmatic blueprint translated into daily academic reality. Here I am talking, emphasizing daily academic reality. this macro level paradigm rehabilitation of our knowledge system will transit into the create means required to implement the four pillar work responsibilities of faculty members. I have preached the rigorous implementation of these four core mandates since long, and some of my colleagues, they are here, and then I think they become that teaching, research, publication, and academic service. These four tasks should always go with faculty as well as with the researcher as well. That demonstrating how each pillar serves as a vital subsystem to sustain both our academic excellence and our wider social lifestyle. Over the years, when I am talking these four pillar components, mandatory components of academics, over the years, when sometimes I have gone through it mandatorily, sometimes okay, I try to implement, and somehow we have been successful this way or that way. At least I don't know how many years. At least to my close colleagues over the years we did, and somehow we didn't say, I didn't say failure, but we have successfully implemented it, and I'm still trying to implement this approach in my as my new responsibility at the University. And I also okay, I come to my appeal later on. So I think it works well. As for university stakeholder, our academic growth and the society reveals our academic growth and societal relevance are instinctively linked to our research contributions. However, their emerging trend in research demand a shift from measuring mere quantitative outputs, such as the number of papers published, to measuring tangible, both quantitative and qualitative impacts. Our research must create to exist solely within the isolated academic loops. It must speak directly to the personal locality and the community challenges. To achieve this, we must build and maintain robust institutional mechanism that bridge the gap between academic research and field exhibition, focusing on three core areas. There are many, but here I just generalize into three core areas. University client integration. We must actively create pipelines that align our faculty's specialized research exercise with the empirical demand of government agencies, industries, corporate entities, civic organizations, and the international communities. This ensures that academic inquiry directly generates economic and social values. Secondly, partaking the knowledge network at different levels of think tank. Our institution must position themselves as primary intellectual in genes for public policy. Since November, it has come quite explicitly at this time by forging structured collaborations with research service seeking clients, university faculties can provide the empirical data sets and the rigor policy tips needed to guide sustainable planning and governance. In this regard, my new initiatives, I say my, it is Gandhiji University Institute. We have established Gandhiji Research Program where any researcher, academics can partake in our research. Unfortunately, we have a small fund, but we invited and there were 10 collaborative research applications. We just can afford for 2, and for master level students we also offer 10, but we are shortfall in the application. But unfortunately, we have PhD scholars. Also where we did not get even a single proposal. There was a small, I should admit, a small, provision, I believe that has stopped our PhD scholars to claim for that research funding. Maybe somewhere we have somehow forgot. Actually, I thought that it should not be that those who have not received any fund from other government agencies that might have restricted, but for the new calls, we will do that. It should be supplementary. So it is one area. And knowledge network. We also established, and many of you will get email or open call that at the beginning we are this Gandhiji knowledge network we are creating from among the people who are living in Gandhiji province or working in this province. And similarly, our Gandhiji research program also, wherever you live, it doesn't matter, but your work, your research should be here within Gandhiji province. These are the 2 things we have initiated. So it is a matter of interest for everyone. And for tomorrow, that Gandhiji knowledge network, I believe, we are planning to do, we are planning to do a lot of things. Let us see. And hopefully, we'll have some time and the resources to this matter as well. And the third one is action-oriented methodologies. So we must incentivize research design that address local economic and social equity, sustainable human settlements, and climate adaptive development among others. These are the vision focus. That is what I am saying. And our research, I think, is not common. I'm also different from our traditional concept here. When we examine the research modality of individual faculty members, I have been advocating since long for a structured 4-pillar research strategy designed to keep every academic dynamically anchored with a lifelong research plan. We must candidly recognize that scholarship cannot be treated as a sporadic administrative obligation. Here I say that it should not be only the administrative obligation, rather it must be a continuing systematic habit. Here I say that structured across the following 4 distinct operational regimes, what you can say models or path, whatever. Here I chose the word regimes. Personal research regime. It fuels the foundational subsystems of individual scholarship, driving independent empirical inquiry into continuous disciplinary mastery. At present, with due respect, I am not trying to insult anyone in any circumstances, but in a lot of instances, as a senior person working in academia for so many years nationally and internationally. Sometimes I talk with junior colleagues, why don't you do a few or a single research that is of your interest? Nimali ke bhaन्छ सर funding नै छैन कसैले दिँदैन के गर्छ कसैले खादैन. We have students. We need funding for data collection. That's why teaching and the research should go side by side. That situation, but we can do that. Since we are creating database, we are bringing the students to the community, to the locality. So that time we can do it. Safal Shastra and not either, but we have started. So that is what I want to say. At least 1 वर्ष लाग्ला 2 वर्ष लाग्ला 5 वर्ष लाग्ला इन्डिभिजुअल किनभने फन्डिङ त जेपा त्यसैमा आउँदैन हरेकको आफ्नो आफ्नो they have their own areas of interest. त्यसैले गर्दाखेरि आफ्नो इन्ट्रेस्टको एउटा रिसर्च चाहिँ we have to initiate. It's my concept. You may think, okay, quite good to listen, but not practical. I can say anything on that. Comment. Personal faculty research regime. This regime directly links discovery with pedagogy. Here, what I was also talking about. Ensuring that classroom curricula are systematically updated with fresh evidence-based data generated by the faculty members themselves with the involvement of students. This is why. And the third one is collaborative institutional research regime, which is now quite popular in Japanese universities. This operational regime discards traditional research mindset by fostering that discards the traditional mindset and brings interdisciplinary multi-faculty research teams to tackle the complex essay problems. Here, essay, what please do not be mistaken, this is the broadest area of the contemporary society, the challenges, problems, and the issues of prosperity that I have not gone down to second level, third level, and then primary level issues in this case. Research service regime, this is the third, the last one. This regime serves as a vital outward facing channel, translating university-led data into actionable requirements of the client for different nature techniques levels. This is by and large the most difficult part, as the service, if somebody is seeking service, then we are ready to provide, otherwise we cannot. Now I have 2 more slides. We must strategically provide that fostering high impact education and research requires a supportive institutional policy framework. We need a very strong institutional policy framework. Faculty members cannot be expected to drive cutting edge, innovative research without the necessary structural support. Thus, university and college administrations must work proactively to dismantle bureaucratic bottlenecks that is called academic creativity. We must invest heavily in digital research repositories. That I think now we have a very good one provided by particularly the University Grant Commission and the consultative effort of 4 different universities in the central university library system. So some other access as the least developed countries, we have that facilities as well. And for next 3 years, we still will continue to access those resources. That is the part. Thus, university and college administration must both proactively dismantle the past. We must invest heavily in digital research repository, enable faculty participation in international scholarly networks, and provide structured financial grants for localized field research. At least my former still colleagues, they are they agree. They should agree that we also started at the beginning. I don't know how other universities they are doing it, and on my own university I had to readdress this matter. But at Pokhara University we also established at least biennial international or national participation for our research program. Though the amount was small, we now it has gone big, and I'm bringing the regulation in the universities as well, which I believe that works well as well. Furthermore, our institutional evaluation metrics must adapt reward innovative teaching methodology that now most of the institutions we have started, so the amount is very small, but there is a reward. Interdisciplinary collaborations we have done a lot, started, and community engaged research alongside traditional population approach. And my experience working over the years in universities and in some development organizations, including the United Nations, NGOs, I have come to keeping the sustainable pace of knowledge system. Here, my own idea through my experience at this juncture, I'm also reminded famously by the prominent management scholar Peter Drucker was noted that knowledge has to be improved, challenged, and increased constantly or vanishes. I took that one very seriously, and I think we also need to take it very seriously. Sometimes we see that still, even if when iron is one of the best metal we ever produced, but if we do not use it regularly, then the Russian will not be visible. So in that sense, our mind also must be brushed in a regular good. Indeed, how then my esteemed colleagues do we maintain the momentum of this transformative shift and keep a sustainable pace for this evolving knowledge system? My simple approach to ensuring our long-term structural acceleration relies entirely on operational imperatives. Very simple, we all of us we know, but only the thing that I believe is difficult for us to put into practice. The first one, we must create a permanent professional habit of the various subsystems. Here, I have introduced different subsystems. This means consciously integrating the five-pillar principle of teaching and learning, that knowledge, science, technology, skill, and practice. I also, over the last many months, am planning to work how these five pillars need to be designed in our curriculum. Of course, it's a very huge research, but at the first instance, how it works, I'm trying to do it. And then actively participate in the four pillar work responsibility I have just mentioned as a faculty member, executing our strategies across the three areas of design to bridge the gap between academic research and the field expectations that I outlined before, and strictly driving the four distinct operational research regimes as individual scholars. It's my approach. Secondly, we must collectively cultivate a comprehensive culture of the knowledge system. Habit creation, and over the years, 10, 20 years, when we are talking about the creation of the culture, it takes, I don't know, many of us, we are here sociologists and anthropologists, to create a culture, it takes a generation, 20 years or so. So I believe we must collectively, it's not individually, it's my own culture. But the research, what I'm talking about, the knowledge system, it should be collectively cultivated comprehensive culture of knowledge system. We must move beyond viewing these framework as a force. Again, I'm talking about as force, bureaucratic compliance measures. When these subsystems transit from mandatory regulations into a shared living institutional culture, our academic pace become naturally self-sustaining, deeply reliant and permanently anchored to the human life system. When I'm talking this framework, I forced bureaucratic compliance भन्दा अलि फरक छ भनेर मैले दुई तिन पटकै हेरेँ काम गर्नु होला अलिअलि सिनेमाको क्रेज छ मङ्गलयान भन्ने इन्डियामा भएको हेर्नु भयो होला रियल घटनामा आधारित त्यो एउटा राम्रो छ सबै कामहरू गर्नु पर्यो 2 वर्ष हो घट्दा घट्दै 18 महिनामा आयो 16 महिनामा आयो टिम म्यानेजरले डाइरेक्टरले सबैले भन्छन् अवकाश भ्याइन्छ त नि अफकोर्स भ्याइँदैन सरकारी जागिरको 9 बजे आउने 5 बजे जाने भयो भने we cannot do it तर मेरो काम हो भनेर गर्यो भने we can do it र हुन्छ गरिन्छ and they were successful and there it is a movie but there are a few things the movie is the substance is real the filming is okay movie based but still couple of things there I like the concept and के भन्छ भने त्यो एउटा बर्थडे मनाउने भन्ने कुरा कहिले हेर्नु लाग्छ साथै फन्नी interesting funny नभन्छ interesting but quite educative छ अनि they try to bring the zeal of the scientists to work with अनि त्यो बर्थडे भन्छ कसको बर्थडे हो र भन्छ यो साइन्टिस्टको बर्थडे कसरी सबैले आफ्नो आफ्नो को चाहिँ हैन 14 years age style कसरी सुरु भयो त भनेर they have tried. There are many things we don't have time. We don't have. We are not coming into those areas. Guru was taking those. All comes in. Yes, they issue सोच्ने अनि कुरा गर्ने पनि आउँछ. But each and the pieces are in practice. सधैँ नभएको होइन छन् हैन. But we need to hear. I mean, culture नै चाहिन्छ. मैले अहिले भन्न खोजेको नलेज सिस्टमको कल्चर डेभलपमेन्ट लास्टली my conclusion a call to action for higher education institutions is the same distinct courage the roadmap from theoretical knowledge to practical transformation requires us to see research not as isolated academic luxury, but as an obligation to society as a nation. Then I say that institution, but here I am talking about obligation to the society and the nation. When we write our research, discussion, and conclusions, we must ensure our work advances the current state of the art. However, as Miller and Sarpin wisely caution, we must avoid making sweeping recommendations on थोरै यसमा पनि हामी साथीहरू धेरै मैले उहाँहरूदेखि अझै त्यसमा काम गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ यो स्विपिङ रिकमेन्डेसन इज probably गत 20-25 वर्षमा मैले देखेको स्विटेस्ट section of the research, या student research होस् या faculty research होस्. You can judge it, you can see, right? Sweeping recommendations for governments or entries that go completely beyond what our empirical findings actually show. And we are going to some of this now, data must have now, my analysis must have literature must have, that is the wonderful part. Just our advice must be grounded, realistic, and adaptable. Let this national seminar be the catalyst where our higher education institutions commit to upgrading their research infrastructure. Let us move systematically from observation to theory, from theory to empirical testing, and from empirical findings to sustainable real-world innovation. As we are approaching the concluding moments, last minutes of this keynote session, I recognize and applaud the outstanding success of this seminar that already the wonderful participation and deliberation over here. Then that outstanding success of this seminar in charging a progressive path forward for our academic community. Thank you very much.
धन्यवाद प्राध्यापक डाक्टर इन्द्र प्रसाद रिजुलाई सरले करिब 1 घण्टाको समयमा हामीलाई आफ्नो तोकिएको शीर्षकमा कीनोट स्पिच डेलिभर गरेर जानुभएको छ। सरलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु र अब हामी यो कन्क्लुडिङ सेरेमोनीको अन्त्यतिर आइरहेका छौँ र अब धेरै ढिलो नगरिकन